My parents want me to sell my car collection worth $85,000 to fund my sister's spiritual destination wedding in Bali because apparently my life's work is less important than her gift of bringing people together. I, 31M, am a forensic accountant. For those unfamiliar with what that means, I spend my days tracking financial crimes. I follow money trails through shell companies, unravel Ponzi schemes, help prosecutors build cases against people who steal retirement funds from elderly victims. I've testified in court 17 times. I've helped recover over $40 million for fraud victims in my career. I'm telling you this not to brag, but because I need you to understand the irony of what I'm about to share. I spend my professional life identifying manipulation, tracking exploitation, documenting the ways people financially abuse those who trust them. And I never saw it happening in my own family until last weekend. Let me give you some background. My parents have always described me as the cold one. It started when I was maybe 7 or 8. My sister Emma, 27F, would run up to guests at family gatherings, hug them, tell them she loved their outfit, ask about their lives. I would hang back, overwhelmed by the noise, preferring to read in my room or help my grandfather with his car in the garage. "That's just Marcus," my mother would say, her voice carrying that particular tone of apology. "He's our little robot." Emma got all the warmth in this family. Emma became a yoga instructor after dropping out of college twice. My parents funded both attempts, totaling around $60,000 that was never discussed again. When she opened her yoga studio, they co-signed her business loan. When the studio failed after 18 months, they helped her discharge the debt and set her up with a new certification program. I paid my own way through undergrad and graduate school. I worked 2 jobs. When I asked for a loan for my CPA exam prep course, my father told me it would build character to figure it out myself. I'm not saying this to complain about the past. I made it work. I built my career. But I want you to understand the pattern. 3 years ago, I started collecting vintage Japanese cars. It began with a 1989 Nissan Skyline GTR I found at an estate sale, partially restored. I spent 18 months finishing the work myself, learning mechanical skills from YouTube videos and online forums. The meditative focus of working on engines became my version of what Emma finds in yoga. The collection has grown to 4 vehicles now. The Skyline, a 1992 Mazda RX-7, a 1985 Toyota AE86, and a 1990 Honda NSX that I'm still restoring. Conservative valuation puts them at $85,000 collectively, though the NSX alone could fetch $60,000 once completed. These cars represent years of research, patience, mechanical skill, and financial discipline. They're my retirement backup. They're my creative outlet. They're the only thing in my life that's purely mine. Last Saturday, my parents invited me to dinner. Emma and her fiance Derek were there. Derek works in cryptocurrency consulting, which from what I can tell means he has a podcast with 400 listeners and trades other people's money with inconsistent results. My mother made her famous pot roast. The conversation was pleasant. I should have known something was coming. After dessert, my father cleared his throat. "Marcus, we need to discuss Emma's wedding." Emma is planning what she calls a spiritual destination wedding in Bali. She wants to get married in a traditional Balinese ceremony followed by a week-long retreat for all guests, complete with daily yoga sessions, guided meditation, and transformational healing circles. The cost? Approximately $140,000. "We've done the calculations," my mother said, her voice taking on that bright, brittle tone she uses when she's already decided something. "We can contribute $40,000 from savings. Derek's family is giving $20,000. Derek and Emma have saved $15,000 together. That leaves us $65,000 short." She paused. I remember the exact weight of that pause. "We think you should sell your cars." I genuinely thought I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your car collection," my father said. "It's worth around $80,000, correct? You could sell 3 of them, keep one as a hobby, and help make your sister's dream wedding happen." I looked at Emma. She was watching me with this expression I'd seen 1,000 times. Patient. Certain. Like she was waiting for me to catch up to a conclusion everyone else had already reached. "This is actually a blessing for everyone," Emma said. "Derek and I have been worried about you, Marcus. You spend all your weekends in that garage, alone. It's not healthy. This is an opportunity for you to invest in family, in connection, in love. Those cars are just objects. This wedding is about bringing people together." "It's what Emma does," my mother added, reaching over to squeeze my sister's hand. "It's her gift." I sat there, trying to process. trying to apply my professional training to the conversation I was actually having. "Let me make sure I understand," I said slowly. "You want me to liquidate assets I've spent 3 years building so that Emma can have a specific type of wedding in a specific location, rather than a wedding she can actually afford?" My mother's face tightened. "It's not about the money, Marcus. It's entirely about the money. That's literally what this conversation is about." "See, this is what I mean," Emma said to our parents. "This is what he does. He reduces everything to numbers and transactions. He can't see the bigger picture." "What's the bigger picture?" "Family, love, being there for each other, supporting each other's dreams." "I've supported your dreams," I said. "When your studio failed, I was the one who helped you file the bankruptcy paperwork because you couldn't afford a lawyer. For free. I spent 40 hours on that. That's different. That was paperwork. This is about your heart, Marcus. Your willingness to sacrifice for people you love." My father leaned forward. "Son, we're not asking you to give up everything. Just 3 cars. You can keep one. Emma's found a dealer who would take them on consignment." She'd already found a dealer. Before asking me, she'd already made calls about selling my property. "No," I said. The silence that followed was unlike anything I'd experienced in that house. It wasn't angry, not yet. It was confused, like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "No," my mother repeated. "I'm not selling my cars to fund a wedding that costs more than the median annual income in this country. Emma can have a beautiful wedding within her means. Many people do." "Marcus." My father's voice dropped to that tone he used when I was a child, the one that meant disappointment was coming. "We've always worried about you. Your inability to connect with people, to prioritize relationships over things. This is exactly what we're talking about. You've spent your whole life keeping people at arm's length," my mother added. "Don't you want to be part of this family? Really part of it? Do you want me to be part of this family?" I asked. "Or do you want access to my assets when it's convenient?" Emma started crying. Not dramatically, but quietly, which was somehow worse. My mother comforted her while my father stared at me like I'd confirmed every suspicion he'd ever had about my character. "I think you should leave," my father said finally. I left. I've spent the last week trying to understand what happened at that table. I keep running the conversation through my head like I'm reviewing transaction records, looking for the point where I misread the situation. The thing is, I don't think I misread anything. I think I finally read it clearly for the first time. I track financial crimes for a living. I identify patterns of exploitation. I document the way abusers create narratives that justify taking what isn't theirs. My family has been running a con on me for 30 years. They just call it love. I don't know what to do now. My mother has texted me 14 times. My father sent an email with the subject line, "Family meeting, important," that I haven't opened. Emma tagged me in an Instagram post about choosing connection over possession that got 400 likes. I feel like I'm going crazy. I know I'm not wrong. But I also can't shake the voice in my head that sounds like my mother, asking why I'm so cold, why I can't just be normal, why I can't love people the way Emma does. Am I the problem here? Am I really the cold one for refusing to fund a party with my retirement assets? Someone please help me make sense of this. Update 1. Thank you, and I found something I need to share. I wasn't prepared for the response to my original post. Over 800 comments. Hundreds of private messages. People sharing their own stories, offering support, providing resources I didn't know existed. One person in particular sent me a link to a subreddit for adult children of narcissistic parents. I'd heard the term narcissist before, obviously, but I'd never applied it to my family dynamics. I thought narcissists were grandiose, attention-seeking people. My parents aren't like that. They're respectable. They're well-liked in their community. My mother volunteers at church. But I started reading the posts in that community, and something clicked into place. Not about narcissism specifically, but about something called golden child/scapegoat dynamics. I need to share what I learned, because I think it might help others recognize their own situations. The golden child is the family member who can do no wrong. Their needs are centered. Their failures are reframed as circumstances or bad luck. Their successes are celebrated and attributed to their inherent specialness. The scapegoat is the family member who can do no right. Their needs are seen as burdens. Their failures are attributed to character flaws. Their successes are minimized or treated as surprises. These roles serve a function. They allow dysfunctional family systems to maintain equilibrium. The golden child validates the parent's sense of themselves as good parents. The scapegoat provides a repository for all the family's negative emotions and unaddressed problems. Reading these descriptions was like watching someone translate my entire childhood into language I could finally understand. Emma wasn't warm, and I wasn't cold. We were assigned those labels to justify the different treatment we received. Emma was warm because she complied, because she reflected well on our parents, because she didn't challenge them. I was cold because I had boundaries, because I didn't perform emotional availability on demand, because I preferred genuine connection to performance. The scapegoat is often the family member who threatens the system by seeing clearly. That's why they have to be labeled as defective. If the scapegoat's perceptions are valid, then the whole structure falls apart. The more I read, the more patterns I recognized. When I graduated summa cum laude, my parents didn't come to the ceremony because Emma had a crisis with a boyfriend that weekend. When I got my first major promotion, dinner was spent discussing Emma's latest certification. When I needed surgery 3 years ago, my mother mentioned she was so busy with Emma's studio opening that visits would be difficult. But here's what really shattered me. I found a series of posts from people describing how their families would manufacture financial crises to extract resources from the scapegoat child. The golden child's needs always escalated to match whatever the scapegoat had available to give. It wasn't just my family. It was a pattern. A recognizable, documented pattern. I thought about the timing of this wedding demand. I bought the NSX 8 months ago. I posted photos on social media. My mother commented, "That's nice, honey," and changed the subject when I called to tell her about it. 8 months later, my parents need exactly as much money as my collection is worth. I went back through my records. Every significant purchase I've made in the last decade has been followed within a year by a financial emergency involving Emma. My down payment on my condo was followed by Emma's studio needing unexpected repairs. My bonus 3 years ago coincided with Emma's need for a new car after hers was repossessed. My inheritance from our grandfather, the one person who ever seemed to see me clearly, was requested to help Emma with credit card debt that had gotten out of control. I said no to the inheritance request. Our grandfather left me that money specifically. The fight that followed lasted 6 months. I'm 31 years old and I'm only now understanding that my family operates on a system where my role is to provide resources while receiving nothing but criticism about my character. I called my mother last night. Not to apologize. To test something. "I've been thinking about what you said at dinner," I told her. "About being part of this family." Her voice immediately softened. "Oh, Marcus. I'm so glad. We've been so worried. I want to understand something. You said this wedding is about connection and family. What happens if I can't make the Bali trip? Work might be busy." There was a pause. "What do you mean, can't make it?" "Marcus, this is your sister's wedding." "I know. But you said it's about family and connection. We could connect here. What if Emma had the wedding locally? I could definitely attend then." The warmth disappeared from her voice so fast it was almost audible. "That's not what Emma wants. Don't be selfish. I'm just trying to find options that work for everyone." "The option that works for everyone is you selling those cars like we discussed." "Marcus, I don't understand why you're being so difficult about this. They're just cars. And if they were just a pile of cash sitting in my savings account? Would you be asking me to give you $65,000 for a party? It's not about the money. Then why does the solution have to involve my money?" She hung up on me. I sat with my phone in my hand for a long time afterward. I wasn't upset. For the first time, I felt clear. I've started meeting with a therapist. She specializes in family systems and recovering from childhood emotional neglect. In our first session, she asked me to describe what it felt like to be the child in my family. I said, like being a utilities provider. Necessary, but not wanted. She nodded slowly. That's very clear perception. I don't know where this journey leads. But I know I'm not selling my cars. I'm not funding a wedding for someone who has never acknowledged my humanity. I'm not going to perform the role my family assigned me anymore. Some people have asked me in messages what I want from my family. What outcome would make me happy? I want to be seen. Just once. I want my parents to say, "We treated you unfairly, and we're sorry." I want Emma to recognize that my life has value beyond what I can provide for her. I don't think I'm going to get those things. But naming them feels important. More updates when I have them. Update 2. Something unexpected happened. I wasn't planning to update again so soon. The situation had settled into a predictable Cold War. My parents weren't speaking to me directly, but I'd hear from relatives about how worried everyone was about my isolation. Emma had posted several more passive-aggressive Instagram stories about people who value things over experiences, and the energy you give is the energy you receive. I was fine with it. Honestly. I'd started recognizing how peaceful my life was without the constant undercurrent of expectation and disappointment. My therapist helped me see that the cold they accused me of was actually boundaries. I'd always had them. That's why they found me so unsettling. Then, 2 weeks ago, I got an email. Not from my parents. Not from Emma. From Derek. "Marcus, I need to talk to you. In person, privately. I know we don't know each other well, but I've learned some things that I think you need to know too. Please call me." I'll admit I almost ignored it. Derek had always struck me as someone who drifted through life on charm and luck, the kind of person who succeeds just enough to keep failing forward. But something about the email felt different. Urgent. I called him. What he told me over the course of a 2-hour conversation reshaped everything I thought I knew about this situation. Derek had proposed to Emma believing that she came from a modest family with simple values. She told him her parents lived comfortably but not extravagantly, and that her brother was distant, but did okay for himself. He had no idea about the car collection until my mother mentioned it at dinner 3 months ago. He had no idea about the total cost of the wedding until Emma presented it as a dream they would manifest together. He thought they were planning a small ceremony followed by a yoga retreat for maybe 20 people. $140,000 was never discussed with him. But here's what really mattered. At a family dinner 2 weeks ago, while I was apparently the topic of conversation, Derek heard my father say something that finally made him understand what he'd gotten into. "Marcus will come around. He always does eventually. We just have to maintain pressure." It's like when he was 16 and wanted to go to math camp. He held out for 2 months before he gave in and spent the summer working to help Emma with her dance competition travel costs instead. He just needs to feel guilty enough. Derek asked me if this was true. It was. I'd forgotten about math camp. I'd won a scholarship to a summer program at a university. My parents had said we couldn't afford the travel and lodging costs on top of Emma's dance competition schedule. I'd spent that summer working at a grocery store while Emma traveled to 5 different states for competitions. Derek went quiet on the phone. Then he said, "I've been in denial about something. Emma and her parents, they talk about you like you're an ATM that occasionally malfunctions." It took me too long to hear it. He told me he'd confronted Emma that night. He'd asked her directly whether the wedding costs had been discussed with me, whether I'd agreed to contribute, whether I'd even been asked. She'd said, "Marcus is complicated. He doesn't show love the normal way. He needs to be guided toward the right choices." Derek told me he recognized that phrase. His mother used to say something similar about his alcoholic father. He just needs to be guided toward sobriety. "I grew up watching someone manipulate and be manipulated," Derek told me. "I promised myself I'd never repeat those patterns. And here I am, about to marry into a family that treats one of its members as a resource to be exploited." He'd told Emma they needed to postpone the wedding. They needed to go to couples therapy. They needed to fundamentally address what he'd witnessed. Emma had, according to Derek, completely lost it. She'd cried. She'd raged. She'd accused him of being infected by Marcus's negative energy. She'd called her parents, who'd come over immediately and spent 3 hours trying to convince Derek that I was the problem, that I'd always been difficult, that Emma just wanted her family to be close and I was standing in the way. Derek held firm. He told them he wouldn't proceed with a wedding funded by money taken from someone without their genuine consent. My parents left. Emma went to stay with them. Derek called me the next day to tell me all of this, and to apologize. "I should have seen it sooner," he said. "I should have asked more questions. I was so caught up in Emma's version of reality that I never questioned it. I didn't know what to say. No one had ever apologized to me for going along with my family's narrative before." "What happens now?" I asked. "Emma's in therapy. Individual therapy. It was my condition for staying engaged. She has to do 6 months of work on herself before we even discuss wedding dates again. And if she refuses, then I'll have my answer about who she really is." That conversation was 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, I got a text from Emma. The first direct communication from her since the original dinner. "I'm sorry. Can we talk? Not about money. Just talk. I need to tell you something. I haven't responded yet. Update 3, final. 3 months later. How this story actually ended. I've been putting off writing this update because I wasn't sure how to frame it. My first 2 posts were about anger and realization. This one is about something more complicated. I met with Emma 2 weeks after her text. We went to a coffee shop near neither of our homes. Neutral ground. She looked different. Not physically, but in the way she held herself. Less performed. More tired. Derek made me write out the timeline of the wedding planning, she said without preamble. Every decision, every conversation, every cost. When I saw it all on paper, I couldn't pretend anymore. She'd never asked me if I wanted to contribute. She'd assumed. She'd assumed because she'd been assuming my entire life. Mom and Dad said Marcus would help. Mom and Dad said Marcus just needed guidance. Mom and Dad said this was how family worked. I don't think I ever thought of you as a separate person, Emma said, her voice cracking. That sounds terrible. It is terrible. But it's true. You were just this background figure who was supposed to support whatever I needed. Like you came with the family. Like a utility. There it was. The exact word I'd used with my therapist months ago. I'm in therapy now, she continued. Real therapy, not just wellness stuff. The therapist asked me to name one thing I knew about your inner life. Your hopes. Your fears. Your actual opinions about anything that didn't involve me. She paused. I couldn't name anything. Not one thing. I've known you my whole life and I couldn't tell her what makes you happy. Cars, I said quietly. Working on engines. The precision of it. The way everything has a logical place. She started crying. I know. I know now. Derek showed me pictures of your garage, the way you organize everything. He said it reminded him of a surgeon's operating room. He said someone who creates order like that isn't cold. They're careful. They're thoughtful. Emma told me about her therapy sessions. About uncovering patterns she'd never examined. The way our parents had always centered her needs while dismissing mine. The way she'd been trained to expect sacrifice from me while offering nothing in return. They called you the cold one, so they wouldn't have to see you as someone they were hurting, she said. And I believed them because it was easier. If you were defective, then my receiving everything wasn't unfair. I want to be clear about something. This conversation didn't fix 30 years of damage. I didn't leave that coffee shop feeling healed or whole. But I felt something I hadn't felt toward Emma in my entire life. I felt seen. The wedding happened 3 weeks ago. Not in Bali. In the backyard of Derek's parents' house. 50 people. Homemade decorations. A local caterer. Total cost under $12,000, split between Emma, Derek, and both sets of parents making modest, voluntary contributions. Emma asked if I would come. I said yes. I stood in that backyard watching my sister marry someone who'd held a mirror up to her and insisted she actually look. The ceremony was simple. Emma had written her own vows. I spent most of my life measuring my worth by how much I could get people to give me, she said. I thought that was love. Someone showing me I mattered by sacrificing for me. Derek taught me that real love isn't about extracting. It's about showing up. It's about seeing the other person as they really are, not as what they can provide. She looked at me. My brother is here today. Most of you don't know this, but Marcus almost wasn't part of my life anymore. Not because he's cold, like I used to tell people. Because I never made room for him as a real person. I treated him like a supporting character in my story instead of the hero of his own. The backyard went very quiet. Marcus, I'm not going to ask you to forgive 30 years of blindness. But I want you to know that I see you now. I see your integrity. I see your quiet dedication. I see the way you helped Derek and me find our way back to something real, even though you had every reason to walk away and never look back. Her voice broke. Thank you for not enabling my worst self. Thank you for holding a boundary that forced me to grow up. I want to spend the rest of my life being the kind of sister who deserves you. I didn't speak. I couldn't. But I nodded, and she nodded back, and something shifted between us. After the ceremony, during the reception, Emma found me standing by the fence looking at Derek's father's vintage Corvette. He'd love to show you the engine sometime, she said. Derek says you'd probably identify the carb issues by sound alone. Probably. She stood next to me. Not touching. Just present. I know this doesn't erase everything, she said. But Derek and I want to have dinner with you. Regularly. Not for any agenda. Just to know you. To learn who you actually are. I'd like that. We've had dinner 3 times since the wedding. It's awkward sometimes. We're learning each other from scratch, which feels strange when you share DNA. But Emma asks questions now. Real questions. About my cases, within what I can share. About my restoration projects. About what I'm reading, thinking, feeling. Last week, she asked if she could see my garage. I showed her around. Explained each car, its history, why it mattered. She listened the way you listen when you're actually trying to understand. You love these, she said when I finished. Like, really love them. I do. I get it now. They're not just things to you. They're, I don't know, creative expression. A way of making order. Something like that. She looked at me with an expression I didn't recognize. Then I realized I'd never seen her look at me with genuine respect before. I'm glad you didn't sell them, she said. Even if I didn't understand at the time. My parents are a different story. They haven't apologized. I don't expect them to. My mother reached out once after the wedding, a message about moving forward as a family, that carefully avoided any acknowledgement of wrongdoing. I responded that I was open to a relationship that respected my boundaries and autonomy. She hasn't replied. My therapist says that's okay. That sometimes we rebuild one relationship at a time. That the family system I grew up in required a scapegoat, but the new family I'm building with Emma doesn't have to follow the same rules. I still go to support groups sometimes. I've shared my story with others just beginning to recognize their own family patterns. It helps to know that escaping the assigned role is possible. That you can refuse to be the ATM, the backup plan, the cold one. Derek invited me to be a groomsman at the wedding. I declined because it felt premature. But I helped him with the finances for the event, legitimate help, reviewing contracts and budgets. Using my skills in service of something chosen rather than coerced. At the end of the night, he shook my hand and said, I couldn't have married the real Emma without you being exactly who you are. I'm still not great at emotional expression. I'm still most comfortable with numbers and engines and logical sequences. But I'm learning that being careful, thoughtful, and precise isn't the same as being cold. It's just a different kind of warmth. One that some people need 30 years to recognize. But Emma's learning to see it now. And for the first time in my life, I'm learning to let myself be seen. That's where this story ends. Not with dramatic revenge or a family burning to the ground. With something quieter. A sister who finally looked past the label she'd been handed and saw her brother as a human being. A brother who finally stopped accepting that he was defective for having boundaries. We're meeting for dinner again next week. She wants to learn about forensic accounting. Says she's curious about what I actually do all day. It's a start. Edit. For everyone asking, yes, I still have all 4 cars. The NSX is almost finished. Emma wants to be there when I start the engine for the first time. Some things are worth more than their market value.